Hello and welcome to the instructional video for the Simulation Center's Super Annie 3 or our chest tube trainer. So the Super Annie 3 can be used for two different things. First, it can be used for the insertion of chest tubes, and second, for the care of a patient who has a closed drainage suction system set up with the chest tube in situ. For insertion of a chest tube, there are two windows, one on the left side and an identical one over on the right side. And then there are removable pads that can be inserted into there, and then the insertion goes through these pads. These pads have several layers to them to apparently accurately represent what layers would be gone through on human tissue. To put a pad in, it's pretty straightforward. The skin lifts off the trainer, so at the very bottom, you just lift it off with its holders there. On the side, there's another little holder, and it lifts up, and you can see the under part there. So this just goes in there. You just fit it into the window. There's no exact way. The pink side goes down, and you just fit it in as close as possible. There's Velcro on the side here that you press down. This can go up a little bit, like that. And then your provider can use this space to insert a chest tube. You can use water as simulated local and insert about 1 ml into the pad, into the subcutaneous tissue there, and then do the chest tube insertion. And this can be done on either side. It doesn't matter which one. Each one of these pads can get a couple insertions from them, so you can use it and then rotate it and use the other side. So that's how you do an insertion, pretty straightforward, and those can just come out afterwards. For the use of a Pleur Vac or a chest drainage system, you have two options. This chest tube trainer on one side has an Argyle large bore chest tube that's already inserted. And then on the other side, turn the trainer over, you can see that there is a pigtail catheter in situ. And so for most purposes, you're probably going to be using the Argyle to do some training on chest tubes. You do have to plug this one in. The power cord is over on the simulator's right side, right there. It's a short black power cord. We do send it with an extension cord because it's quite small, just to get the power to the wall. So I'm just going to plug it in over on this side. When you're using this with a closed drainage system, you have to ensure that the chest tube that you're not using, so if we're not using a pigtail, is the stopcock is turned off, or that you've used a clamp to ensure that it's closed. So I'm just going to use the chest tube clamp and clamp that one closed right now. And then we can use this one. There's no on or off button for this. Essentially, as soon as you plug the power cord in, it turns on, and you can hear it going. I don't know if you can hear that whirring on the video or not, but you'll hear a whirring noise once the trainer's turned on. Then you're just going to connect this to your Pleur Vac or whatever other drainage system you're going to use. I have a Pleur Vac here. You don't want to use any zap straps on this because, of course, we'll take this apart afterwards. So we do want to avoid doing any permanent anchoring to that tube. There are a few buttons on the bottom of the trainer I'll show you that will simulate different scenarios. The trainer does have an endotracheal tube in situ, so you can hook this trainer up to a ventilator to demonstrate positive pressure ventilation and what that will do to a closed drainage system. So how you will see different titling in there and oscillation. So you can either hook this up to an ambu bag and bag the trainer, or hook it up to a ventilator. For spontaneous breathing, so there's 3 buttons on the bottom here. Just do this so you can see. So right down here, there are 3 buttons that you use for this trainer. This one is a knob that turns, and this controls how strong the air leak is when you hook it up to a Pleur Vac or other closed drainage system. So this one will turn from side to side and simulate the air leak on there. This button on the very bottom, the smallest black button, is the mode button. So this is what you press and you hold it down to change it from a spontaneous breathing patient to a positive pressure ventilation patient. And then the larger black button on the top there is a cough button. So you hold that down and it will simulate a cough with the system so that you can see if you had a patient hooked up to a Pleur Vac and they coughed, what would it look like on the Pleur Vac? Those are your 3 buttons there. The only thing I will say, this trainer has never done, it's never accurately shown a no leak setup with the Pleur Vac. We've troubleshooted this. We've tried to get a hold of the company, but we have not successfully been able to do so. So this trainer will always show probably about the smallest, a +1 air leak in your Pleur Vac. You can increase the air leak even larger than that with the dial here, but even if you turn this dial all the way to off, you still get a mild air leak there. The only workaround that I've seen for that is if you press the cough button a couple times. Briefly afterwards, the system will show no air leak, and then the air leak comes back again. But you can do that just shortly to show your learners what the Pleur Vac would look like if there was no air leak present. As with all of our task trainers, you do have to make sure that there's no food, no drink, or no ink near this that can damage the components of the task trainer itself. If you are switching from positive pressure ventilation to spontaneous breathing, you just hold down this mode button, that's that little black button there, for a couple seconds. When you'll know you're successful is when it is in a spontaneous breathing mode, the system makes a frequent clicking sound. I don't know if you can hear it, I'm just gonna stop talking for a moment. Hopefully you can hear that. There is a regular clicking sound that it makes. That's when it's a spontaneous breathing. Now I'm going to hold this button down for about 2 1,000ths. Now that clicking has stopped. So this is when you could hook up the task trainer to a ventilator or use the ambibag to ventilate the trainer and demonstrate positive pressure ventilation. So that's how we do that. In addition to coming with the pads for chest tube insertion, this trainer will also come with 3 5-in-1s. These 5-in-1s are to simulate different scenarios with a Pleur Vac. So one of them is just a normal 5-in-1. You can use it to connect to your Argyle chest tube. The other one, if you look, you probably can't see on the video here, but it's actually got, it's plugged in the middle there. So you would hook this one up if you wanted to simulate a scenario where the chest tube is actually plugged. And then the last one actually has a tiny hole. You won't be able to see it on the video, but you will in person when you examine the 3 of them. It has a tiny hole in the 5-in-1, and this will simulate an air leak in the tubing system that you can have your learners troubleshoot. So this is the setup of the Super Annie 3. As I mentioned before, the only defect in this one is you cannot accurately do a no leak situation with the Pleur Vac hooked up to the chest tube, but you can work around it by coughing the simulator a couple times and then just briefly showing your learners what that would look like. If you have any further questions, you can contact us at cecil@bha.ca. Each one of our task trainers do come with a care and maintenance guide that highlights everything I just mentioned to you, but on paper, so you can review that as well, and observation tools to go through the expected behaviors of the skill if you are doing closed chest tube drainage system management. Thanks for watching.